Brett Smith, welcome to the Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Marcus. It's a pleasure.
The pleasure is all mine. You are a mindset and performance coach. You're a former boxing champion, an entrepreneur, and more. Your life journey is truly spectacular. So please tell us, how did it all start?
Thanks for the introduction. That's quite a bit to live up to. Where do you want to start, Marcus? You're right. The journey has been a little bit profound at times. So yeah, you tell me where you'd like me to begin. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start with how did you get into sports from the beginning?
Great. Okay. So sports is something not foreign to me. I've been playing sport from probably as long as I could walk, I guess. I grew up Sydney, Australia, Sutherland Shire, very rugby league orientated area, which is a kind of football over here, depending on where you are in the world. But I mean, most people know rugby. If not rugby league, it's a similar sport. So yeah, my father was a coach, coaching A grade and good junior rugby league teams from the moment before I was born. I have an older brother, 9 years older, so he was well into rugby league when I was coming through. I was a ball boy, where you run and collect the ball when they go out and bring it back to the sideline for the coach, for the ref, from as young as I can remember. I started playing rugby league at 4.5 in the under sevens, and then they had an age group close to my age group. The next year I played the under sixes, and then I fell into my own age group. So sport is a big part of my childhood. It is a huge part of my life still. It has a huge impact and influence on a lot of what I do, particularly the performance and mindset. There are a lot of tools that I have integrated based on my sporting experience. I played rugby league as a junior. I played, I think, 150 odd games. I played every year until I was 14. I played about, I don't know, 10 years, 12 years of rugby league. I snapped my leg in the grand final of playing on Shark Park, which was Cronulla Sharks are one of the NRL, one of the major teams over here. And we get to play the grand finals there as part of that competition. I snapped my leg in the under 14s, and I think that was the first reality check. I was a halfback, so a small ball player anyway. Halfbacks are generally a fair bit smaller. So I was a small kid. I'm still a small guy. But I think that was the first time I got quite a reality check, even at 14, that I was getting outgrown size to weight ratio to the average person. So I snapped my leg, and in the off season, probably 3 years prior to that, from 12 years old, I was doing boxing in the off season to keep me busy. Very busy kid, very high functioning. They've got a diagnosis for that as an adult and as for a child, but my parents never felt the need to worry. They just kept me busy, kept me occupied, and focused on being good parents to rather than medicate me, which I'm forever grateful for, to be totally honest, without going too far down that rabbit hole. But so I fell into boxing as a side sport and out of season sport. At 15, I went all in and boxed kind of full time for a year because I felt that I'd been outgrown in the sport of footy, and I did quite well. I think I had 6 amateur fights that year. I won 4 or 5 of them. Won a New South Wales novice state title or something like this. And then, to be totally honest, getting a little bit off the sport, sidetracked from the sport, I had for probably my early developing years, like probably 11 or 12 years old, I was exposed to narcotics and substance abuse at a young age. And by about that age, by about 16, I was working full time. I left school at 15. Didn't finish high school. I mean, I finished what they call a school certificate over here, year 10 at 15. I never went on to complete my high school certificate, which, enables you to go to university and things like that. I never got there. I pulled out at 15. I started an apprenticeship as an electrician. So at 16, I was earning my own money. I was living my own life, and I was pretty hard to contain and pretty hard to manage at that age. That's a really nice way of putting it. I was off the rails and I was out of control, I suppose you might say, even at that young age. But I was working full time. I was working with grown men. I was exposed to a lot of alcohol and substance abuse at work, and in my weekend leisurely activities. So by 16, I kind of fell off the rails a fair bit. 17, I kind of pulled it back together, went back to rugby league for one season. We won that premiership undefeated, so we never lost a game that year. And I was like the rogue, not a rogue. I was a good kid, but I was the one out partying a lot, doing all the wrong things, turning up to the games or the training hungover, like typically just not professional, I suppose. And we went on to win the comp, and I somehow won best and fairest for that year, and so that made me the best in the team for that year. So it was probably worked against me in a lot of ways, because I probably lured my own self in a bit of sense of security about what I could get away with, what you couldn't. And I learned the hard way over the following years that you don't do sport and drugs, you don't do sport and be a sideline alcoholic at those. Over time and distance, that unraveled, and it really did unravel for me. I went on to really go downhill. I spent my 19th birthday in a rehab and detox facility in Royal North Shore Hospital in Sydney. Spent quite a bit of time there. Got a real first-hand experience of what real heavy drug addicts and the life where it leads you, and just where you can end up. And I am grateful for that traumatic experience, because it did give me a clear indication of how bad it can get. And I wasn't by no means quite at that level, but I was in a really bad way. So anyway, from 19 to 21, I was pretty lost. It's pretty hard being 19, particularly when all I'd known in my junior life was to drink and party. So by 21, I left the country. I was very excited to leave Australia. I travelled extensively for about 4 years, about 30 countries in total, I think I visited. I got heavily involved in scuba diving. I've dived all over the world. I've dived South Africa, Egypt, Thailand, Australia, obviously, Fiji, Vanuatu. I've dived extensively. But I wound up in a little place called Dahab in Egypt for a year and a half. I became a scuba diving instructor. I got right into technical diving, so decompression diving. I really pushed the limits for myself and what was considered acceptable. I thought I watched a guy. We attempted to do a 100-meter dive, a technical decompression dive, 100 meters on air, which for those that know diving would know it's beyond irresponsible. But it's achievable. And he got severely bent, and I thought that I experienced him dying on that dive. But getting a bit off track there with the diving. But that is a sport too, and it's definitely a sport that takes a lot of strength, mental. What do you call it? Confidence, I guess. Persistence. You've really got to be dedicated and stick to your guns even when things aren't going your way. So it's got a lot to do with sport, and it's a different sport to what I do, but it definitely has a lot of the contributing assets of sport. But yeah, I think Egypt was the first time I really truly found myself. Even though I travelled extensively, I had always kind of done it with people from where I was from. When I got to Egypt, it was one of the first times I was actually on my own, and I become very close with the Bedouin people, the local people of Egypt, the indigenous of Egypt, I guess. And from there I travelled more, travelled extensively. But I come back to Australia, and when I come back to Australia, I come right amongst. I don't know if you've heard of the Cronulla riots. The Cronulla riots were a big thing here in around 2004, 2005. It was a lot of instability in the Sutherland Shire where I grew up with the Lebanese and Muslim culture and the so-called, white Australian culture. And it bubbled to boiling point and it really tipped over boiling point. And there was some sort of major riots in our area where we grew up. And I just spent a year and a half in the Middle East, very much involved and very respectful and loving of the Muslim culture. And I was in shock and just a little bit disgusted by the Australian mindset and mentality. And although I was pretty loose and pretty crazy, I'd become pretty well travelled and pretty cultured as well. So I had a lot more, I felt at that point, a lot more respect for other people's opinions and cultures. So I scooted out of Sydney and went straight to the Sunshine Coast where my parents had relocated. And that's when my new life began. And I had a bit of a messy breakup with a previous partner who I've been married now for 11 years and happily with my wife for 15. So it was some time ago now, 15, probably 18 years ago. And it shook me right up. It really messed me right up. And I found myself going in the wrong direction. And I know what the wrong direction was because I'd been there firsthand and seen pretty high depths of addiction and just where it took me and where I didn't want to go. And I flipped the coin to go to rehab or to go somewhere else. And it was boxing. I went back to the boxing gym at 26. And that's where my true sporting life began. I had a short amateur career as a senior, like as an adult for about less than 12 months. I had 11 amateur fights. I won 9, I think. Turned professional, very raw, still very angry, and still very confused about who I was, to be honest. And turned professional, and my professional boxing journey began. And it's a real highlight of my life. And boxing is still a big part of my life, whether it be kind of having a positive influence through performance and mindset around up and coming professional fighters now, or helping out in the gym one day a week, or still being part of my, if not daily practice, it's still very much part of my physicality of life. I train every day. So yeah, that's a bit of a backdrop of where I've come from, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's an incredible story and really inspiring that you really had your hurdles and, in and out of addiction and be able to come to where you are today. But looking back to your young age, you said that you had some substance abuse or from a very early age, and also had ADHD. You said that your they didn't medicate you, but that's something that you have, had against you in the traditional schooling system. That's not really a benefit, although it can be seen as a superpower in, for example, in business or anything else. In the traditional schooling system, that's kind of difficult. So how do you think that the early teen years shaped you into who you are today?
To be honest, I don't know that that's a really good question. And obviously it's a challenging one for me to answer because what those years taught me was resilience. But I truly believe I learned that. And I believe that everything is a learned behavior. As a human experience, I feel everything is learned. There's very few things that we bring with us when we come and take our first breath. Nearly everything is a learned behavior. But those years, so for that reason, I come from a family that strong people. They dig in the heels, and get the job done. And so I feel I learnt those abilities to manage myself. I learnt from my parents, but yeah, I guess those years taught me a lot about resilience, but also I think I've spent the last 10 years trying to understand myself and defrag that narrative and, a lot of that addiction and come back to a few things. It come back to what you want to diagnose, or I got diagnosed with ADHD at 40, I might add, never diagnosed, self-diagnosed, I suppose.
Okay.
when I told my parents, no, like I got diagnosed at 40 professionally. And when I told my parents, they're like, you had to see a doctor for that. You needed somebody like we got to tell. I said, "Oh no, I wanted the diagnosis. I wanted the label, the narrative." And you know what? I can use that to my advantage in business and in coaching because it's definitely a strength, and it's also an ability to communicate with people that do have it and explain to them and show them just what you can become with these superpowers of ADHD. But yeah, so let's call it ADHD. I never knew how to manage myself. I was high functioning, and I don't believe that was ADHD. Looking back now, being 10 years working on myself, it's a deep, strong connection beyond. I don't want to get too woo on you, but beyond this experience, I'm very blessed to have some information come to me, and with a lot of practice on how to engage your intuition and use your intuition when it's there, and learning when to turn on and feeling the energy of spaces, being able to utilize that. That is where some of my greatest achievements have come from, and my greatest successes, and just knowing when to pounce and when those opportunities present themselves, knowing to say yes or to say no, and those things. So I had all that information coming through to me at a very young age, and I just didn't know how to manage it. Oh, I had no idea. Like you said, mainstream education. There's no tools for that. It's like sit down, be quiet, put your hand up to ask a question. Like that didn't. I was very anti-authority. I didn't like. I respected people. I had a lot of respect for a lot of my teachers, but I didn't want to play by the rules of authorities, and I think that comes generational as well, to be honest. But yes, I think I've gone back and had to get back in touch with myself and allow myself to be the kid that I never was coming through. And also, I never fitted in, to be totally honest. I never fitted in with the narrative. I always gravitated towards the naughty kids or the rat bags because they were probably running away from themselves too, because there was no room for being different, and there still isn't in society. There's a narrative you're supposed to toe the line by and be, and you're expected that if you show up different, you're judged and crucified. So yeah, I think it was just lessons of resilience and just building strength to eventually come back to find yourself. Most of my successes and my achievements have had nothing to do with education, nothing to do with the people I grew up with. My parents have been strong role models that I love dearly. But I mean, everything else was just part of the journey. I have to be totally honest. A lot of it didn't serve me then, and it doesn't serve me now. And I stay connected to those spaces and those people because it's history. It's kind of nostalgic, not because we're deeply closely connected. I could probably count on one, maybe two hands, those that I consider truly close friends or something like this that connect out and reach out and say hi, without a birthday popping up on Facebook or something like this. So yeah, I've kind of gone around with that answer because it is a tough one to say how it forged me. I feel the forging went on. If anything, it was probably a negative part that I had to go back and correct to be the best version of myself now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a inspiring story to tell people that you don't have to go down the traditional path and still be successful. We will go into later on what you're doing now, and you have a successful business and you're a performance coach and everything that you're doing now. But back to you left school at 15. You said that you had support from your parents. You were struggling a bit with addiction, but also you said you didn't really fit in. So what was the main reason for leaving school, and how did your family react to that?
Oh, to be totally honest, I come from, I don't know what the language where you are, but blue collar, working class family, and I say this with utmost respect to my family because I love where I come from, and I've actually probably been too attached to where I come from and buying into the story of addiction and working class for too long. You know, I really probably crippled myself with that mindset for a long time. But you know, my father was the same. He never finished school. My mum left school at probably 15, 16 as well. My brother left school at 16. I think my nephews have gone on to go to university, but no one before me had. It was quite normal. I knew by about 14 that I didn't belong in school, and I was looking for the fastest way out, which meant I did a lot of work experience at school. So from 14 and 15, so year 9 and year 10 at school, you can go and have a 1 week placement in construction or any company you like. I gravitated to construction. I did 3 or 4 of those, from plumbing to carpentry to electrical. I knew I was getting out, and it was a stage thing. It wasn't like I just dropped out. Like I was getting out, and I was doing the bare minimum that I had to get out, so that my parents would accept that, which they did, and they encouraged it because they knew. I think their statement was, we don't see much point you going and continuing to high school because you're not interested. You're just not, you know, there's nothing good's going to come of it. You're just going to get yourself in more trouble. And so it was a planned move. I wouldn't say necessarily encouraged, but it was like, if you're staying in school, you better double down and do something with it. Otherwise, get out and get a job. And that's what I did. So, yeah.
And so looking at where you are right now, can you talk a little bit about what it is that you do now? You mentioned it there. You work in construction, but you're also doing the mindset and performance coaching. So from all of this, you know, hurdles, all the adversity that we overcome, to where are you right now?
Yep. Okay. So that's a hard question because there's a bit going on. So about 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I retired as a fighter. And about 7 or 8 years ago, I launched my first startup, and it come because I was very restless. That's a fall from grace when you retire from sport. You really become quite lost. And I was one of those casualties, and I needed something more. And one thing led to another through various different circumstances, and I ended up being affiliated with a coach who was helping a young athlete that I was coaching, and like a spiritual coach, you might say. And he did a bit of work with me, and it became clear that I needed to do my own thing. And I was tired of the bureaucracy of a large construction company I was working for. Like I said, I've been in the construction industry for 27, 28 years. I'm only 42, but like I left school at 15, and that's all I've ever known. So I said, I've got to do this. And at that point in time, we had 3 mortgages, 3 children under 3, and I was in a very good paying construction job, which was, everyone said I was crazy and mad to leave. And I said, it's just something I've got to do. If I can sit here and criticize and say how much better I can do it myself, I need to go and do that. So we launched the electrical company, I think 2015, 2016, something like that, as startup with no guarantees, no anything, no. I had $15,000 or $17,000 when I left the business I was working for to start up. That was to buy a vehicle, to buy insurances, to get your licensing, all these things sorted. And we learned very quickly about money management, about budgets, which, don't get me wrong, we were not unsavvy at anyway. That's one thing that I give full credit to my parents for instilling in me, was we grew up with not a great deal. You know, we weren't dead poor, but we worked hard what we had, and they were very conscious of their money, and they taught those skills to me and my brother. And anyway, we went on to do startup of the electrical business. That had not instant success, but within a couple of years, we had scaled that to 7 figures, and now it doubles out. It's reasonably successful. I think we have a roster of 12 or 14 staff in my electrical business. I'm still like sole director of that. We have a management team in place, a general manager and an office manager. And, I deal with the business a fair bit, but more at that top end, not the day-to-days of the staffing and stuff. So that was my education in business. Like that was literally we learnt as we went along. I then launched in 2020, I think, or 2021, our development company, another construction company with development, which again had fantastic success. And we're now 2023 and launching into our next project, which, you know, it's significant and it'll probably turn over double my electrical business or more next financial year. So it's been a successful run of hard work and also learning a lot about myself, a lot about. So for the last 10 years, I've been working harder than I ever did at school and harder than most people ever did at school. And I've been going back and I've been learning everything I can, every business seminar, every health seminar, every, you know, mindset seminar, every spiritual, like I've gone to work on myself and I have dealt with so much of my own baggage and I've got so, you know, okay in my own skin and happy to be me. And I reckon that's only been about the last 3 years. I reckon it took me 7 years of working on myself to finally to get at ease with being in my own skin and not feel like I was still that little 14-year-old running around in a 40-year-old's body. That takes a lot of work, and that's something that a lot of people don't want to do or even talk about. So, yeah, like the successes are fantastic, and that's great for the for building for my family's future. But my passion and my true calling, and now I'm in a relatively strong position to take that step. As in, if I try to step into performance mindset or even the conscious hooligan, as my newest company is called, if I tried to do that 10 years ago, I would have been chasing every client for the bottom dollar and the bottom line because I had a mortgage to pay and I had kid mouths to feed. And, you know, I couldn't be embracing it the way that I am now, about more about providing value and impact on a society that I feel needs it more than ever. And I don't want to be one of those old school people that always, back in my day. But, you know, whether it be a pre-COVID or post-COVID scenario, it does feel like our chips are down in society. I feel like we are weakened. Our social immunity, our you know, our intellectual abilities have been sacrificed at the hands of COVID and a lot of other things. But society-wise, I think it needs people standing up and prepared to take drastic and radical action to have an impact and a positive impact on society. And I feel that is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And you know what? When everyone said I was crazy and I was mad and it would never work, and those staff mates, you know, my work mates, I found out 3 or 4 months into my first electrical business, all took bets on me to how long it'd take me to fail. You know, when they were all doing that, I did what I knew I had to do, and I knew I had to do it. I just knew, and that goes back to that unknowing intuition and a thing that there is a label for it and there is a word for it. And I don't need to talk about that because this isn't a spiritual congregation. This is a chat about business and mindset and just about me. But, you know, I've been given a lot of information and I've learned to listen to it. And I've learned to take drastic action when sometimes most people would not. And I did that when I needed to take when I opened my business, and it succeeded. And I took a chance with a lot of apprehension and fear, and I was scared and unsure, and there was a lot on the line financially with a development company, but I just tuned in and I connected to my true self, and the answer was yes, this is something you have to do, and I did it. And so when that answer is yes, and it's a strong knowing, it means that no matter what, the answer is correct, even if it is a failure. You were supposed to experience that failure for good reason, and you will learn and grow from that as a human, as an experience, whatever it might be. So the development, it was a strong yes, and I went right, and it was a massive success, and it will continue to be so for the indefinite future. I got this same calling with the coaching space, and I've been working in the coaching space. So I've been in touch and working with coaches and in the personal development space for 10 years. I've been registered as a coach for 5, as in going through my various programs from master practitioner of, NLP, neuro linguistic programming, hypnosis, behavioral, assessing people, and like all the coaching, programs. But I wasn't ready, and I didn't know what my calling was. I didn't know what my niche was. I wasn't ready. And then I woke up this year, and I deliberately took time off this year to spend with my son, and it was to get clear on what I want to do with the rest of my life, because it become less focused on a monetary situation and more focused on what my purpose was. My direct purpose was to spend a lot more time with my son before he goes to school next year. He was pretty wild and pretty loose, and it reminded me a lot of myself. And I needed to be more present to that and just learn from him. Look in the mirror as I look at him and see myself and see how I can be a better role model. And that was my key. That was my key goal this year, was to step back from the monetary businesses, my companies, and to focus on my family and my future, whatever that looked like. And slowly but surely, the coaching has just got louder and more profound and more clearer. And here we are. I've created I'm talking on a summit tomorrow to students, college students in the USA and business owners in the USA. We're looking to go there in November on a coaching speaking tour. I had a great conversation last night about taking my performance and mindset program into banking systems before the year's out in the corporate world. So there's impact there. And I work with local boxing gyms. I've got so many people reaching out, and it's amazing what happens when you just open your heart and you're ready, and you know that what you're supposed to be doing is you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, because that's when the magic happens. And I have learnt that, and I had to go back in order to create. I've got a range of programs being launched in 2024. Right now, my performance and mindset program, it's a universal program built on universal laws. So it is for everyone. I just redirect the niche or the target, as in if it's for sport, we focus on the sport. You still meditate, you still visualize, you still affirm, you still hydrate well, you still eat well, you still live a holistic life, no matter whether you're doing a parent, you're just doing that as a parent. You're just tuning into what it is to be a good parent versus being a good athlete or a good business startup or a person looking to scale their business. So, it's very universally adaptable to the masses, which is the whole purpose of it. It was, my coaching is first and foremost for my kids when I decide to park this experience. So they've always got me to lean onto and to go to see dad. So they just at the click of their buttons, they can go and click on any one of my programs and go and see dad and get some guidance and some wisdom because I won't be here forever. So that is first and foremost where this come from, an opportunity to give lessons to my kids when hopefully they want to watch it while they're here. But failing that, when I'm one day gone, they'll always have me to look back on. And I always say, if you know the kind of parent that I am, I'm very hands-on, I'm very involved. I coach my daughter in netball. I do taekwondo with one of my other daughters. My son's coming through. I'll be heavily involved in whatever sport he chooses. I'm very hands-on, and I pride myself on being a good parent. So if these programs are designed for them, imagine what they could do for the general consumer. If they're good enough for my children, they're more than good enough for you, if you understand where I'm going with that. So, by 2024, I just see it because I do see things. I just see my logo, which I have got. It's not this one. I've got, and I just see the programs wrapping around that, and there's a broad range of them. But this year, I'm just focusing on helping people perform by tweaking their mind and setting it in a direction they want to be operating from. And that is so adaptable. That is for everyone. Yeah.
I love that. And so many things. One thing I would like to ask you is, now running, multiple businesses in different fields, being successful at that, what learnings have you taken from sports that you can now implement in the corporate world?
Organize your life. Be super, super organized. It's a non-negotiable. This goes back to ADHD. It goes back to being high functioning. And, one of the big things that a person with ADHD needs is structure and a system. They really function well off it. But that can go for anybody. You don't have to have ADHD to do this. But if you organize your life, you're going to have more time. You want to do what I do. You want to run 3 companies, have 4 children, coach, be involved in sports. I'm running the Sunshine Coast Marathon this Sunday. Yeah. Ooh. So, and my goal is to run a sub 3-hour marathon. So that's a pace time of 4:15. If you're working in minutes, or 650 miles, you're moving, man. You're moving. So that takes 6 to 8 hours of my life every week, just running. A lot of time to learn too when you're listening to podcasts. And I carry a dictaphone and I record all my downloads, all my subconscious downloads, and all my the information that comes to me the way it does. I record that and then I type it up, and that there I could create a program in the space of a 1-hour run. I mean, I get enough downloads, I come back, I make the notes in a Word document, and then I just go and extend upon them, and bang, you'll have a 6, 8, 10 week program to provide to people. But organize your life is a profoundly huge tool. Make lists. Lists are massive, whether or not you put your highest priority at the top or the middle or whatever. Strike that list off with a highlighter so you feel successful each week because you see you're making progress. Adapt that list at the end of each week. You don't get it all done, that's okay. Move it over the next week. But that's something that a really important role model and mentor of mine, he was my boxing manager and definitely a strong business mentor of mine, taught me very early in my career, is get a list, get a notepad and write everything down and tick it off as you do it. It's a really, really easy tool. Same as organizing your life. If you don't know, I'm sure you're going to give your listeners an opportunity on how to reach out to me. These are big parts of my toolbox for my performance and mindset programs. Goals, you've got to be really crystal clear on your goals and what they are and what they look like. And, I've always known where I was going before I was there. So I see it, I have it, I know what it looks like. I've succeeded before I've won. I've already run that sub 3-hour race this Sunday. Whether I run it in 3 hours is another story. But the fact is, it won't be from a lack of self-belief. I've already seen it. I visualize it. Have an ultra focus, being focused on the task at hand, not getting distracted. So focus is, if you imagine going, do you do the shopping? I don't know. You go to the shops, you shop for groceries weekly, something like this.
Yeah.
You go to the shop and you don't have a list, right? What do? You just stroll around aimlessly. You might pick up things you don't need. You might end up with a shopping trolley full of things you don't need and walk out and realize you didn't buy what you did need. That's a lack of focus. It's the same with life. If you don't have a goal and you don't have it structured, you don't have it organized and written down in your life, how do you ever expect to achieve it? Because there is, in this modern world, there are so many distractions that you can just look left, right, up, down, and you'll have your mind taken away from you when really it needs to be doubled down, honed in, ultra focused on the task at hand, whatever that task is. If it is spending time with your dog, be present with your dog. Okay, if it is spending time with your children, your wife, your business, your goals, your sport, whatever it is, be focused and be completely present at any given time. That takes a lot of work as well. taking action. Everyone can have all the tools in the world. You can have all the tools and know all the information. The biggest problem with this information era is that everyone knows everything and no one does shit about it. You know, nobody takes action.
Yeah.
Nobody steps forward. Everyone knows they're all keyboard know-it-alls. They know everything. They've done all the programs, know all the information. What are you done with it? So one of my biggest strengths in life is action. One of my strongest points is when it's time I go, I freaking go, and I don't know any other way. And I'm forever grateful for that strength because it is something that a lot of people do struggle with. But again, procrastination is normally an overwhelm. It's normally a bad habit of overwhelm and too much information, and it goes back to not being organized. It goes back to not being clear on your goals. It goes back to not being focused on your goals. It goes back to not taking action. You put those things in the perfect systematic form, and you watch the synchronicities flow through your life, and the opportunities start to present themselves, and you start to win. You know, whatever it be, whatever you're doing, you start to win at life.
Yeah. It reminds me of Dana White, the president of the UFC. He's saying that nowadays, if you even remotely a savage, you will run everyone over because, well, what you said, like people don't really take action. People know stuff, but they don't want to implement them. So I like that, take action. Then you also mentioned the focus part, and I'm obviously not an expert in ADHD, but isn't that one of the things that you have some difficulty on focusing on some tasks? So how have you worked with that now that you are super focused on your goals when you're also having the ADHD part of it?
Well, you said it yourself. You asked in one word and answered the next. You said, "How do you focus on your goals?" I said, "Goals." Okay, so anybody high functioning with ADHD, it's not they can't focus; they just can't focus on shit that doesn't interest them. You know, they need to be focused on what ticks their boxes, what their interests are. Find their interest and watch them double down. No, they are ultra focused. They are the best. That's why they are such overachievers. That's why a huge percentage are entrepreneurs, CEOs, corporate executives, because they are so driven and so focused. But they've got to be interested. It's got to be something they enjoy doing. So for me, I've kind of lost a bit of interest in being an electrician. So the focus is more challenging now, but I do love business. I do love the idea of scaling and success and making it something that I've never done before, as in building something. I do have a lot of focus on that. So yeah, I think it's the ADHD. That's easy if you know what you want. You know what you want. It's easy. You just got to go get it. You just got to find the tools and the ability, because you won't ever have to worry about the kid with ADHD doubling down and working hard to get it. You just got to find what they love, and then find a way, if it's at an age or a point where it's affecting their education or their day-to-day life. It's finding a way to integrate what they do love into their everyday life, so you can kind of leverage that to get the best out of them for their own growth, whilst also stimulating them enough to stay on track and focused enough to want to be there and be involved. Yeah.
So that's why in the beginning we said that ADHD it's a superpower, but it can also be something challenging. So in this case, what you said, it's so many successful entrepreneurs that have ADHD because they have this ultra focus. So I love that.
They do what they love, because like most entrepreneurs, they come from nothing. They've got some crazy idea where everyone calls them mad, me included. I mean, I'm in construction. That's not a new thing, but doing what I did at that point in my life was a crazy move. But I just knew, and a lot of, I think, and this isn't, I'm not a doctor, obviously, and this I'll be very conscious for any of your listeners to not take my wording out of context for who I am. I'm just a guy. I'm just a coach who has, this is my own perspective, but I do truly believe that we are overdiagnosed, under supported, and under parented. I believe it's a scapegoat and an opportunity for less accountability for the people that are in charge of these young kids coming through, i.e. their parents or their guardians or their role models or their mentors, whoever they might be. I think they need to step up and be like my parents, be more involved, get them more involved in things and give them the tools they need to succeed in life versus just looking for a scapegoat. You know, any GP, and again, I'm very conscious of what I'm saying here, it's very easy to be diagnosed. I'll just say that. It's very easy to be diagnosed with ADHD, and the true levels of it are pretty rare, actually. It's just a lot of it is, I feel, I hope I'm not getting myself in trouble. But yeah, I feel a lot of it's neglect of people doing their due diligence as parents, as teachers, as, you know, like it's just an easy out. It's inconvenient to have a disruptive child in a classroom, and I believe that a lot of that comes back to parenting and not teaching kids what they need to learn, as in social skills in the home front. So when they go to school, they can focus on, the teachers can focus on giving them education, and they don't have to worry about being the disciplinarian because they're not getting it at home, and it snowballs, you know. And I'm not saying, you know, there's a lot, of course, there's levels of ADHD that are affecting the classroom and this and that, but a lot of it is a lack of work from the bottom up and the bottom down, I feel. So,
yeah, I understand.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned visualization quite a bit as well. You said that you already have ran the marathon in your head. You know the business, 2024, what's going to happen. How are you working with visualization?
I visualize from, I'll grab a book.
Yeah.
This is one book, right? This is a book from John Cahoe, right? Mind Power. This talks about affirmations and contemplation and dreams and visualization. This book was written in 97, okay? 1997. Louise Hay, Heal Your Life, written in 1984. These aren't new phenomenons or new tricks or tools. These are real life things to help you reprogram or program the subconscious mind, because it is a narrative that is working in the background on behalf of you. You know, your conscious mind is picking up that coffee to drink it, but, you know, your unconscious mind is sleeping and going to the toilet and also thinking a lot for you, which you don't realize. And by tapping into that, by programming that through things like affirmations, through things like visualization, you can change the outcome. I've done visualization long before I read those books. It was something that was talked about a million years ago, long before I fell into personal development 10 years ago. I think even, 15, 20 years ago, it was a thing. I mean, like I said, it's been a thing forever, but I think I've done it for a long time. I remember a Facebook memory or something come up of my wife had taken a photo of me at a local boxing gym like 12 or 14 years ago, of me visualizing, and I was visualizing going through the fight. And as the bell would ring for the gym buzzer for the kids to start skipping or hitting a bag or sparring, I'd do my 12 rounds to that 12 rounds. I'd sit there and visualize for 12 rounds because I sat and I watched how the fight was going to go. And I literally visualized every point and all my strengths and all my assets and how I wanted that fight to unfold and all my best points versus, there's a lot of negativity in the human mind unconsciously from our upbringing. Don't do that. No, don't be naughty. No, don't. No, it's a natural thing to have a negative no in the background. So it's quite easy to fall into the habit of just saying, I can't do that. Or no, that won't go my way. And by changing that narrative and by changing the communication with yourself, you change the outcome. So whether it be sport, business, I now read, see what I've got here. I now read, let's see what the number's up to. Sorry. So I've got an affirmations list of 2023. I've got no internet here, but I'm up to about 64 affirmations that I read to myself each and every day, morning and night. Okay, I visualize every day. So visualization took an extension for me when I learned to meditate about 6 years ago. And I started to meditate, and I read a book about meditation, and it was a book that was on my shelf when I was like 17 years old. So I never read it, but I was always drawn to this kind of spiritual connection of self and self-discovery. And the visualization is a big part, and I meditate into that a lot these days. And meditation is just that, right? You know, you're just spending some time alone, and whether or not you're stopping the mind or engaging in future concepts, that's what visualization is to me. And I do it every morning myself. I'm a student of my own work. I only do things that I know 100% work, not just by me, but by the thousands of people before me and the century-long history of education to say that it works. But yeah, it's firsthand. The problem with all these things are they're so simple. And people get stuck. The logical mind gets stuck on simplicity, and it gets stuck on the idea that it's not in control of these things. Like, how could you possibly just imagine it's going to trip and then it happens? Well, it works. I'm sorry. Sorry, logical mind, but these things work. And I think you'll find that a lot of successful people will tell you the exact same thing.
I'm sure. And I've been more interested in that lately. So I'm not actually, doing a lot of meditation myself, but it's something that I hear more and more people, talk very well about and swear by. So I really do believe that can be beneficial both for yourself, but also for whatever goals you're setting for yourself.
100%. I have started to learn my different forms of meditation. So, I've got a meditation to just come back to self and just calm the nervous system and just calm that high functioning version of myself and come back to self, come back to your true essence and your core and your soul and just be awakened. And I do it every morning at 5:30 or 6 a.m. before the kids rise. So it sets my day up for success. It is a big part of my day and my life. And then other days, I don't always know. I don't have a system and a structure for what I'm going to do. I just know that every day I'm going to do it. But other days I might wake up and it'll be goal driven. I'll sit there and I'll visualize for 30, 40, 50 minutes or an hour about this coaching business. I might be calling in a corporate attention about getting more exposure in the corporate world, because that potentially has the ability to stimulate the coaching business that I've created in the monetary sort, so that I can focus on my passion of giving back to community and stuff like that. And so I might meditate into that, or I might focus on being a better parent or whatever it might be. There's again, without getting too spiritual, I spend a lot of time tuning in to my higher counsel and my higher self and going deep and communicating with what I can't see, but I know is there, and I know that communicates back with me. And that takes a deep level of trance and a deep level of understanding of self, and really being able to quiet the mind so that you can hear the information that's brought forward to you unconsciously. There's a broad range of meditations, and I highly encourage anyone who doesn't to. And people say to me, close friends, I can't meditate. I can't turn the mind off. I said, great. Get up in the morning and just do that. Just breathe deeply, breathe in through the belly, get in the habit, read a book, watch a podcast, Google how to do deep breathing. It's good for your nervous system. It's good for your body, and just breathe into and focus on the noise in your head. and just watch what happens, watch what comes through, because at nothing else, you're going to get a clear understanding of what your unconscious mind's saying. Is it negative? Is it positive? Does it need to be tweaked? Because that's the first, and it's like a pioneering part of meditation is understanding what the self-talk is. By understanding your self-talk, you can start to take action for change or moving forward with the noise to support you. You can't do that if you're just walking around in the matrix day to day and the noise rattling around your head. By stopping, no one's asking you to quiet the mind and stay hum. That's not that is a form of meditation, but just stopping and listening to what's going on is the first port. And it's an amazing experience because you get to understand yourself a lot better, and maybe you realize what's not actually working for you anymore. Maybe you realize that you're listening to a 7-year-old, 10-year-old, 14-year-old version of yourself that you've outgrown, but your mind hasn't. Now you haven't upgraded the mind. You've upgraded the body, and you're this adult, still got this younger mind. And your mind should be a tool. It should be an asset. It shouldn't be controlling you. You should be using it to support you, not it using you to do whatever you learned at an age that's not serving you anymore. So, yeah.
Really interesting. And I'm sure that this is just one of the aspects that you teach in the mindset and performance coaching. So if the listeners or viewers want to reach out to you, how can they best do that?
Yes, of course. For the time being, so the website is getting it's under reconstruction because I'm in construction, so it's under a rebuild. So right now, jump on to Instagram, the Conscious Hooligan. There's a couple of kind of underscores there, the _conscious _hooligan. But I'm sure if you search for the Conscious Hooligan, you'll find me. The same on Facebook, on LinkedIn. It's Brett W. Smith. And also, my personal profiles on Instagram and Facebook are Brett W. Smith as well. And you're more than welcome to have me there because I'm kind of one and the same. For a long time, it was, a lot of my content and my personal upgrades were just filtered through my personal pages anyway. So that would be the best place to grab me. Jump on there. Give me a like, shoot me a PM or a direct message, and I will happily come back to you and see if I can support you. I would love to. I'm working with a range of people, from athletes, young and professional. Like I said, we look set to step into the corporate world before the year's out with some banks and stuff, which is really exciting. And yeah, even parenting, kids, relationships, like I said, it's a universal program based on universal laws, and it will help anyone that wants to upgrade their life, I guess. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So before I let you go, the last question that I ask everyone is, if you can choose the next guest on this podcast, who do you think that I should speak with?
The next guest? One or two? It's got to be one?
No, you can take two.
Okay, so I'll say one. Jason Reynolds from the Quantum Movement. Okay, would happily put you in touch with him. He was my first ever coach. He's an enlightened soul, to say the least, a special man, and I'm sure it would be a really interesting conversation, probably extending a bit more upon coming back to yourself. Very interesting man, and has a lot to give. Yeah,
sounds really interesting. Brett, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Sports Management podcast.
It's been a pleasure, Marcus. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to talking to you again for sure.